Let's talk about the most complicated thing in the entire universe, the brain inside your head. You might think of it as a finished product, right? But it's not. It's actually a constant work in progress, being shaped and molded every single day by the world around us. And, well, that world is changing faster than ever before.
So, we're going to start with this really simple but kind of profound idea of a mismatch. See, our brains spent thousands and thousands of years evolving for one kind of world, and now we live in a completely different one.
And that leads to a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? Is our modern life actually breaking our brains? I know it sounds dramatic, but it's something neuroscientists are taking very, very seriously. Are the pressures of our digital urban lives just pushing our ancient biology way past its limits?
It all comes down to this concept called evolutionary mismatch. Basically, our brains are wired for the savannas, for small communities, for natural cycles of light and dark. But today? Today they're trying to navigate these huge, sprawling cities and endless social media feeds and just constant artificial everything.
And the sheer scale of this change is just mind-boggling. Get this, by 2030, it's estimated that 70% of the entire world's population will live in cities. That is a radically different habitat than the one our brains were optimized for. So what does this new environment actually do to our wiring?
Well, you can think of modern life as a kind of a gauntlet for our brains. It's this series of challenges it has to run day in and day out.
First up in that gauntlet is dopamine. You've heard of it, right? It's our brain's reward system. It's designed to give us this little jolt of pleasure for doing things that help us survive, finding food, connecting with people. But in our world, that ancient system can get hijacked really easily.
A Stanford psychiatrist, Dr. Anna Lemke, explains this perfectly. You get a like on social media, a notification pops up, a new video autoplays, boom, you get a dopamine spike. But your brain, trying to keep things balanced, responds by turning down its own dopamine production. Now, if you do that over and over and over, you can actually end up in what she calls a chronic dopamine deficit state, where it's just harder to feel pleasure from anything.
And when you put it side by side like this, wow. The difference is stark. Our brains are built for a world where you had to put in physical effort to get a reward, a world with natural cycles. And we've basically swapped all of that for instant gratification and a totally artificial environment. And the numbers? They really back this up. Living in a city is linked to way higher rates of mood disorders. It keeps our amygdala, that's the brain's little fear center, on high alert. And something as simple as light pollution, which affects literally 99% of people in the US and Europe, totally messes with our sleep. Our environment is actively stressing our brains out. Okay, so when we hear all this, it can feel a little bleak, right? But there's this one idea we always cling to for comfort. This popular idea that our brains are just endlessly adaptable, that they can just rewire themselves. I mean, it's such an appealing thought, isn't it? We all love those incredible stories about stroke survivors who regain function, or people who lose their sight and develop almost superhuman hearing. It feels like magic. But, and this is a huge but, here's the twist. According to top neuroscientists like Dr. John Krakauer, that whole explanation is just wrong. The brain isn't performing magic tricks. So what is really going on? And this, right here, brings us to the most fascinating part of this whole story. The truth about how our brains actually change. It's a lot less about magic and a whole lot more about hard work. So here's the real difference. The myth is that parts of your brain get totally repurposed for brand new jobs, like unlocking some hidden potential. But the reality? It's that we're training abilities that were already there, just maybe lying dormant. We're strengthening existing connections, not just creating new ones out of thin air. Think about it this way. Brain change isn't like an electrician coming in and rewiring your whole house. It's way more like a musician practicing scales, over and over again. It's about taking the architecture you already have and making it stronger and faster through repetition and good old-fashioned effort. And the proof for this is pretty incredible. In some studies, when a person loses a finger, the brain area for that finger doesn't learn a new skill. It just turns up the volume on weak signals it was already getting from the other fingers. Or get this, in another study with deaf cats, the moment they got a cochlear implant, their auditory cortex, which some thought was now visual, started processing sound immediately. It was always ready for sound. It was never truly rewired. Okay, so if our brain changes through training,
not some magical rewiring. Does that change just happen at a constant, steady pace our whole lives? Not even close. Some really groundbreaking research now shows that our brain's development actually follows a predictable blueprint.
It turns out researchers have found 5 distinct eras, or epochs, of brain structure across our lives, and they're separated by 4 major turning points. This timeline gives us a kind of map, showing us, on average, when these big shifts tend to happen.
So let's break this down real quick. From the day you're born until about age 9, your brain is busy consolidating its main networks. Then, from 9 until your early 30s, it's all about hitting peak efficiency. After 32, you enter this long period of stabilization, and then around age 66, a slow reorganization begins. It's a map of your entire neural journey.
So, what on earth do we do with all of this information? How do we navigate this crazy reality of having an ancient brain in a super modern world?
The big takeaway here is actually really empowering. Once you let go of the myth of magical rewiring, you can focus on what really works: deliberate, conscious training and practice. We can finally appreciate that our brain has these incredible, but not limitless, abilities.
And this gives us a clear path forward. We're facing down all these modern challenges, the dopamine traps, the city stress. But we're doing it with a brain that we now understand has a clear development plan and a known way of changing. And just understanding that blueprint helps us make so many smarter choices.
So, in the end, it's not about finding some quick fix to rewire your brain overnight. It's about recognizing that every small act of focus, every moment you decide to put the screen down, every new skill you practice, that's all a form of training. So the final question really is for you. Now that you know your brain's true blueprint, how are you going to choose to train it?